In 2005, Capcom released Resident Evil 4, a genre-defining masterpiece that not only changed survival horror, but the entire gaming landscape as a whole. It rewrote the blueprint for modern action games, inspiring titles like Gears of War, Dead Space, Uncharted, and even BioShock. It was a triumph, and one that has since carved itself into gaming history. It's been 20 years since its release, and its influence is still felt to this day. It remains a staple within pop culture, an icon that possesses the ability to transport you back in time. It was a game that never really changed. No matter the year, it was always waiting for you to boot it back up. But what if it did change? What if it became something new? Well, that dream would become reality in June of 2022, when the remake was officially announced. The question wasn't whether or not Capcom could pull it off. No, it was if they should even do it in the first place. Why alter something so sacred? Well, the goal was not to simply remake a masterpiece. It was to make a new one. A game that would not only stand on its own 2 feet, but walk alongside the giants of the series. It was a reimagining, one that sought to redefine the genre once more. It was the rebirth of Resident Evil 4.
September 30th, 1998. It's a day I'll never forget. The cop inside me died that day. And that night, Raccoon City was wiped out, thanks to the bioweapons created by Umbrella. Somehow I made it out, but too many others weren't so lucky.
Much like the original, the remake starts with Leon, as he remembers the Raccoon City outbreak. But the remake immediately does something different. It goes deeper. It highlights the trauma of the incident, and it explores a new depth of his character in quieter moments. It's in his eyes now, a withered and despairing look, as he remembers the horrors that occurred. His internal struggle is personified by his need to ensure that what happened that night never happens again. Raccoon City hardened him, but most importantly, broke him. He harnessed all of that guilt and is using it as a driving force to keep fighting. He's no longer some rookie cop. He's now a weapon. Now, obviously, he still retains the cheesy one-liners that made him so iconic.
I'm sure you boys didn't come all the way out here to roast marshmallows. Maybe you did.
But these moments of levity are complemented with a much deeper character arc, making him an even more compelling protagonist. This is very different right off the bat compared to the original. In 2005, Leon was more in line with a traditional action star. He was the cool guy, constantly cracking one-liners and flirting whenever he got the chance.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
Is she... well, you know.
Don't worry, she's cool.
He was arrogant and a lot less serious, but his charm was undeniable. He didn't seem as affected by the events that occurred 6 years prior. However, across both games, the mission stays the same. Leon is tasked with saving Ashley Graham, the president's daughter. As the fog rolls in, it becomes apparent that the original environment has taken a much more grim and dreary turn. The walk from the car to the house is littered with the corpses of livestock. The path is far more sinister and foreboding compared to the original. There's an oppressive feeling in the air, and Capcom immediately sets the tone for the game. It's clear that Leon is dealing with something much darker than before, but it's when he arrives at the hunting lodge that things take a familiar turn. Instead of immediately jumping out the window, like in the original, Leon is forced to move deeper into the house. The added level of suspense in the opening really works to sell the new tone and vibe. The first kill is much different in the remake. It wastes no time in showing us the horrors of the Las Plagas. We get our first introduction to a Ganado desnucado, which is a new mutation of the Plagas, specifically designed for the remake. It's a lot more realistic and grotesque. The Ganado's neck is broken, but somehow he's become even more aggressive. And after killing him, Leon's cover is blown. The village is now fully aware that there is a trespasser on their land, and it's here where the hunt begins. This is where we get our first look at Hunnigan, and instead of the classic sitcom-like radio call, we see her in an actual cutscene. Her job is still exactly the same. She provides remote assistance on the comms, but one thing she can't do is prevent the Ganados from crashing into the room.
Gotta go. Talk later.
So now is the perfect time to jump through that window.
I'll let myself out.
The intensity of the moment only continues to ramp up as we make our way to the village square, which is one of the most iconic sequences in the original. The moment the gate opens, the same dread that coated the village all those years ago returns. The villagers are hollow husks, shuffling around the land, performing everyday tasks as if stuck in an endless, morbid routine. The suspense boils over when the attention is suddenly shifted as Leon is thrown into pure and utter chaos.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
This version of the village fight is much more intense and frantic compared to the OG. The Ganados are relentless with their attacks. They work together to suffocate Leon whenever he tries to run, constantly cutting off escape routes, making it feel like there is nowhere to go. The Ganados possess a sort of degree of intelligence. They communicate with one another through a collective hive mind, and devise plans to make sure Leon does not succeed. But you know who isn't messing with all that? Leon, who honestly is even more of a one-man army this time around. He moves around with precision and fluidity. The combat almost feels like a dance, using the knife that was given to him by Marvin as a vengeful shield to, parry a chainsaw. In the remake, Capcom amped up everything about the gameplay and the systems. You can now parry attacks and move much more freely without any real restrictions. The combat is much more violent and bloody than before. Even the way Leon moves his pistol when a Ganado gets too close is tactical. The gunplay is incredible. Everything about the new and improved gameplay is fun as hell, and the 6 years of training is put on display against these, poor, infected villagers. By the time the bell is rung, it's clear that the soul of the original is still very much there.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
It's important to note that in the original game, the entire village section has a distinct look and feel to it, one that is painted with a washed-out palette, making the environment feel more desolate and cold. It felt like we were placed in a twilight zone of sorts, a twisted reality that was drained of all life. We're constantly reminded that we are an outsider, a trespasser, disturbing the balance within their so-called community. The mood was scored by a foreboding soundtrack, paired with some chilling sound design. It created a sense of panic in each early encounter, which blended perfectly with the slower gunplay and the boulder chases. Now, when it comes to the remake, the environment feels more alive, more lived in. The colors are warmer in contrast to the bleakness of the OG, but they still have an underlying darkness to them, reinforcing the dread within every situation. Although there's a noticeable soundscape, it lacks the chilling soundtrack that made every encounter in the OG village unsettling. Still, an ominous beauty looms over both versions. The element that truly makes the remake shine is the brand new take on the environment and level design. It breaks off from the beaten path forged by the OG. It's an entirely different beast. Every set piece and encounter is more intricate and handcrafted to fit the new vision. The village feels more like an actual community, built around functionality, whereas in the original, the areas felt more scattered and desolate. The cabin is now within sight of the windmill, the lake is accompanied by a fish farm, and the village manor is far more isolated than before. It sits alone, covered in overgrowth, as it watches over the village square. Even Salazar's castle is more prominent within the environment. It stands as this looming figure, silently observing us through the distant fog. It's these details that make the village seem much more alive. All of this combined with the gameplay creates a brand new experience, but one that also feels deeply rooted in the charm of the original. There are a lot of overlapping details and differences between the remake and the OG. The section includes various areas and puzzles that weren't present in 2005, but there are also areas that are practically identical, just with slight changes. The same goes for the systems as well. The merchant and the attaché case make a return, and they've both been revamped to service the new style.
Welcome. I've got something new for you, mate.
But this time around, he gives us more stuff to do in the form of merchant requests, which are essentially just little chores to do around the map in exchange for spinels, which can then be used to buy treasures and various items. Now, inventory management has always been a core element of Resident Evil as a whole. It was always a question of what to bring with you and what to leave behind. The original RE4 changed that with the attaché case, allowing the player to essentially hoard items as long as they had the space. Of the many memorable aspects of the original, the case is one that really stood out. It was a game changer. It allowed players to organize their items exactly how they wanted to. In the remake, the attaché case is not only a storage device, it's a jack of all trades. It allows us to craft ammo and items, and we can also decorate it with charms and change out the case itself. It's a lot more dynamic in the remake, but I still prefer the original. There's just something about it that itches my brain. Maybe it's just Leon staring at me from the corner of the screen. Now, much like the brand new take on the environment and atmosphere, the narrative has been delicately crafted to uphold the plot of the original, while making sure to innovate and expand on the emotional depth of the story and its characters. The village does a fantastic job at planting the seeds of the conflict. It's here where we are reintroduced to some of the most iconic characters from the original. But this time around, each and every one of them is retold in a way that fits the new tone. Capcom carefully weaves more emotional depth into each character, and it feels much more natural given the circumstances at hand. The first of these characters is Luis, and instead of him being tied up in a wardrobe, he's now stuffed into a bag. And before any proper introductions happen, they are interrupted by Mendez, the village chief, or Big Cheese himself.
The big cheese.
What?
Who are you? Yeah, stop right there!
This scene is much darker than the original, and it's here where the real conflict of the story is presented. Leon in both versions is injected with the Las Plagas parasite by a cult named the Los Illuminados, which is led by a man named Osmond Sadler. They worship the Plagas as if it's a god, and he himself stands as a sizable threat. But right now, he's simply just a haunting illusion, wiggling his way into Leon's psyche. The way the Las Plagas affects him in the remake is much more prevalent. He's strong, but not strong enough to completely ignore its influence. But for now, Leon finds himself chained up alongside Luis, who is quite different from the way he was portrayed in the original. Back in 2005, Luis was more of an enigmatic figure. His true intentions were never clear, but here he is given a much more personal narrative and purpose. His role in the story has been increased. Luis is a man seeking redemption for the life he once lived. He was once a researcher for Umbrella, and was involved in various projects throughout the years that tied directly to the overarching story of Resident Evil. He then began working with the Los Illuminados. The guilt and self-loathing that he feels drives his character to do good. He's very much entrenched within the conflict of the Las Plagas, and getting out of it is not as simple as just walking away, much like the chains tying the two of them together. This moment forces them to work alongside one another to escape, and it's during the struggle that Luis tells Leon that Ashley is in the church. Now, in order to get to the church, Leon needs the insignia key, which across both versions is found in the village manor, the home of Mendez. Once again, he overpowers Leon, but this time a bullet comes through the window. His rescuer doesn't stick around, but she'll be back soon enough. For now, the true descent into the village has just begun. In the village section, there are two main boss fights standing between Leon and the church, Del Lago and El Gigante. Both of these fights are really faithful to the original, with only slight differences that serve to enhance the overall experience and scale. Del Lago's fight across both versions plays out relatively the same, but instead of being knocked off the boat, you kind of just get staggered. Sadly, that means there are no more QTEs of Leon swimming at Mach 6. Even though Del Lago is a bit more frantic in the remake, it's still 100 times easier to actually hit him with the harpoon. The aiming in the OG is pretty jank during this fight. In my opinion, it's definitely the weakest boss across both versions. Now, as soon as the fight ends, Leon passes out for around 6 hours as a result of the plaga slowly curdling the blood within his veins. But the main difference now is what comes after. The surrounding area has been completely altered and feels much more sinister and demonic. At this point in the original, Leon is led almost directly to the El Gigante. But in the remake, Capcom expands on this entire chapter, allowing us to explore much more freely and backtrack wherever we want to. It introduces new treasures and puzzles within the world that makes every area feel more interconnected and rich, adding a layer of depth without disrupting the pacing. In fact, it creates a rather seamless flow, resulting in a natural progression into the reimagined El Gigante. Similar to Del Lago, he undergoes some minor changes, but for the most part, he is still the same towering giant as before, stomping his way around the claustrophobic arena, all while launching shacks at Leon. It's an incredibly nostalgic fight, and one that remains legendary the moment this happens. The way Capcom delicately handled the most beloved moments really shows how much they cared about upholding the initial vision for the game. Everything about it feels like an evolution of an already refined recipe. From the fights to the unrelenting and violent nature of the plagas, it's a familiar brutality reimagined for the modern age. One that leads Leon to the church, and in the presence of Ashley Graham.
Just let me go.
Listen. Easy with that. My name's Leon. I'm here in the president's orders and...
Much like Leon, Ashley has undergone a change. She was once a simple damsel in distress, a character we were forced to protect, one that was very surface level, often feeling more like an objective rather than a person with a distinct personality. But now she's so much more. Apart from the noticeable appearance change, Capcom took the time in making Ashley feel more compelling. Obviously, she's still scared and vulnerable. I mean, who wouldn't be when thrown into any situation like this? But everything about her reactions feel much more natural and human. She acts her age this time around, and despite the immense weight of the situation, she keeps going. Ashley is a crucial part of the narrative in both games. I mean, she's why Leon is here in the first place. It's a constant tug-of-war battle between him and the Los Illuminados. She's constantly captured and saved and then captured again, while also being at the mercy of the Plaga. Despite that, she's never really a burden, especially in the remake. This time around, her AI is much more refined. Her responses and movements while in combat are much more realistic and fluid. Now, the moment they leave the church, Leon's gotta lock in. This leads us directly into one of the most intense moments in the game, the village chase. The pacing for the rest of the village section is unrelenting, aggressive, and chaotic. Everything about the revival of this sequence only serves to intensify the chase. The rain is being thrashed around by the gusts of wind as the environment begins to shed its layer of deceit. There isn't a single element that lies dormant during the chase. Even the farm animals have had enough. It's a descent into a nightmare, and it only becomes worse when we enter the cabin. The cabin is notorious for being brutal. It's a claustrophobic nightmare, and the anxiety that it evokes is insane. It's one of the most dreaded parts of the original. It feels as though the walls have begun to close. It's a coffin, big enough for 3. Despite all that, the remake somehow makes the original cabin seem tame in comparison. The cabin itself is technically bigger in the remake, but somehow it feels more congested. There's no escape. The waves of Ganados crash into the building with a vicious craze. It's intense, and it feels even longer this time around. On top of all the chaos, Capcom decided to, put a brute in the living room. It's genuinely insane, and just as the situation becomes even more overwhelming, Ashley comes bursting through the door. What follows is completely unique to the remake. In the original, the villagers just give up and stop pursuing. But now, they continue to force themselves into the cabin, and they only stop when they are physically barred from continuing. I can't decide which is more unnerving, the slow retreat of the Ganados, or their constant pursuit. It's here where the path of the two games split. In the original, Luis kind of just leaves the cabin, but now he flees alongside Leon and Ashley. But the one thing that can always catch up to them is the Plaga.
What's happening to me?
Ashley, is this the first time you've coughed up blood like this?
You want to start explaining?
The cough, the blood, is caused by something called Plaga.
Time is one of the main villains of this game. It's only a matter of hours that stand between Leon and the infection. We learn that there is a way to kill it, or at least suppress it. Luis has developed a way to combat the Plaga, slowly undoing the work he was tied to. His backstory starts to show through the cracks, but the curtains are quickly drawn before he reveals too much. He wants to help, but not at the cost of his freedom.
We'll contact you later. Hey, got a smoke?
The one holding the keys to that freedom is Ada Wong, a character whose intentions are never clear, and one who is shrouded in mystery. She walks a fine line between ally and enemy, and you can never be sure when the line has been fully crossed. This is the first true introduction to her character within the remake. Her mission is to obtain the Amber, which is a more potent and concentrated sample of the Plaga, one that can be used to rival Sadler's power, and she's relying on Luis to give it to her. This sample is Luis's ticket out, and having the two of them work together adds a whole new dynamic to the story. Ada is obviously known for playing her cards close to her chest, so even when we are shown her true intentions, it seems fabricated. I also find it really interesting that they decided to fully introduce her this early on. In the original, her character isn't fully introduced until the castle. The player only sees Ada whenever Leon bumps into her, but now we get to see her in action, without actually being in her presence. It adds so much to the story, and the same can be said about all the new additions leading to Mendez. Instead of choosing where to go, the remake forces Leon and Ashley to fight the Chainsaw Sisters.
Great.
Sorry, didn't realize that was yours.
I am flattered, but I'm a one-lady type of guy.
But when one obstacle is cleared, another shows up. Just when we thought Capcom couldn't possibly elevate this section even more, they throw Mendez at us as if he's Mr. X or Nemesis. The way this scenario unfolds is incredible, and it actually shows the lengths Leon will go to protect Ashley. Despite knowing of Mendez's power, he still doesn't hesitate in confronting him. Across the 3 encounters with him so far, Leon has probably been thrown about 60 feet in the air. Leon is Ashley's shield, and she's his shot at redemption, to make up for all the people he couldn't save in Raccoon City. So it doesn't matter who stands in his way, he's getting her home. This time, it has to be different. So when the moment arrives and Leon has to face Mendez head on, he's ready to do whatever it takes to stop him.
You know that. Oh, Almighty, grant me the strength to crush your enemies.
Despite the new layer of seriousness in Leon's character, he is still very much, Leon. I mean, what's the Mendez fight without him saying hasta luego?
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Want to get ugly? Let's get ugly.
Not only does Mendez look even more menacing, he's also more aggressive than ever. This time around, we unfortunately can't just throw incendiary grenades at him, as sad as it is. Instead, Leon has to dodge various attacks as the fire rapidly engulfs the arena. Mendez continues to violently whip his tail, and all we can do is evade and shoot. His second phase is far less personal and up close in the remake. He chucks explosive barrels and debris at Mach 6. It's a really engaging fight, and one that honors its lineage.
Give my regards to your god.
Leon then comes crashing out of the window as the barn is taken by the fire. My favorite thing about this scene is how much Ashley helps despite not actually being in the fight. The act of her breaking the window and helping Leon up shows that she cares about him and realizes the severity of the situation. She tries her best to pull her weight despite not being a special agent. In the original, she just asks if he's okay.
Are you okay, Leon?
With Mendez reduced to ashes, Leon and Ashley can now move past the village. But when one door closes, another opens. They find themselves stepping into a new nightmare, one just as elegant as it is haunting. Welcome to the castle.
Come on.